I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, and I've traveled quite a bit, and I have to say that Memphis is the friendliest town I've ever been in. I've traveled enough to where sometimes if I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I think to myself, am I in Gallup, New Mexico? Am I in Amarillo, Texas? But now I happen to be in Memphis, Tennessee. I go by Aldo Senior, and this is my first podcast. And up until a few months ago, I had no idea what a podcast was. But here we are. And by the way, Alec here, my dear friend, it's his studio. And coincidentally, I've known him for 7 years. And I happened to get in touch with him to get a number of someone. And here he told me that he had a studio for podcasts. And Alec, the name of your company.
Parasar Studios.
Say it again.
Yeah, Parasar.
Parasar. Tell him why, though.
Yeah, there was a dinosaur that basically projected sound through this crest on its head, and they could communicate like 6 miles apart. So instead of naming the company Parasaurolophus, I shortened it to Parasar and figured that kind of represented the airwaves.
That's a great name. And coincidentally, I've always had a thing about Marconi, because he said there's sound in the air. And he was the first one to communicate transatlantic, without wires, of course.
Yeah.
And I think he was the first one to start a radio station.
Marconi?
Yeah, which is interesting. Enrico Marconi. I think he was born in a castle. Today there's Google, so everybody has knowledge about everything. There's nothing you can't really find out. Where years ago you had to read. When I was a kid, we had a set of encyclopedia that my mother paid $5 a week for. I gotta laugh, but we had them for years, So here we are in this modern age, and now we're going through this COVID thing, and I have to just mention that for the first time in 7 months, I was actually able to have dinner with my grandchildren and his mom and dad, their mom and dad, and I have to say that the last 6 months, life has changed. How many times I get out of the car and I have to go back to the car to get a mask, which is okay. I could respect that, But I also have to say that, they're closing restaurants and bars at 10 o'clock. So I don't know, maybe COVID comes out at 10:15 or something. I'm just curious about that. I fool around. I say, I saw COVID running down the street at 10:15 on Main Street in Memphis. I have to say this about Memphis, okay? First of all, I did a little research when the first time I came to Memphis was 12 years ago when my oldest son opened the first restaurant. And by the way, I found out there's 650,000 people in Memphis. And it was shocking that it's actually a larger population-wise than Atlanta, Georgia. It takes a good half hour to drive through Memphis. That's a lot. Now, my hometown, Trenton, New Jersey, is 7 square miles, And by the way, being I mentioned New Jersey, I got to make a comment about New Jersey. Robert De Niro did a movie called King of Comedy, and he makes a comment. He's like, and he actually kidnaps the so-called Johnny Carson, but it's actually Jerry Lewis who plays the part. And Robert De Niro mentions that when his parents punished him, they sent him to Passaic, New Jersey for 2 weeks. But I have to say that it's called the Garden State for a reason, and it's actually very beautiful. And New Jersey has 126 miles of beach. Atlantic City has 11 miles of boardwalk. You can ride your bike at 6 a.m. on a boardwalk. Anyway, let's get back to Memphis. Now, my son, my oldest, he's the reason why I'm in Memphis, okay? Now, he graduated from NYU, and he met his wife in New York. And, she's from Memphis. And, of course, he fell in love, and sure enough, he ended up in Memphis. So now here I am in Memphis, Tennessee. And I just got to mention Aldo's Pizza Pie. Now, I go by Aldo Senior, okay? I'm not plugging my son's restaurants because this podcast has nothing to do with the restaurants and has nothing to do with him. Although he did suggest that we do a podcast, I must say that. And he wanted to call it Talking in Memphis because I talk a lot. In fact, when he opened up the Slider Inn in downtown Memphis, I was talking to a couple, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw him. We had a soft opening. It was very crowded. There must have been 300 people there. And I said to the couple, watch, my son's going to come over and rescue you. And he says, that's enough, he says, you know. But hopefully I'm interesting enough. And but I got to the point where I would say, thanks for listening, you know. Because you can be a little obnoxious sometimes, you know. But although I hope that I have enough things to say or stories to say. And being I brought that up, I was watching a special that Gregory Peck did. And his friend Cary Grant says, why don't you do a documentary on your life? So he's sitting on stage and he's talking about, of course, they showed some of the clips of his movies, you know. And he said, the reason I was in the actor and I was in the movie business is because I like to tell stories. And that's what Ecco'la entertainment is about, okay? We want you to escape with us for an hour or whatever, or when you go see a concert or you go see a singer, you're escaping a little bit. You're trying to have a little fun. You know, if you can't have fun in life, then what good is it? You know, and try to always be around people that make you feel good about yourself. And I always tell young people, my son Aldo thinks that maybe sometimes I ramble on, but I tell young people all the time, if someone in your life tells you to stop dreaming, don't talk to them again. Unless they're family, because you always make exceptions for family, you know. I was told one time, a long, long time ago, that happiness derives from selfishness. Now, I was raised where you're not to be selfish, you know. But it took me a long time to understand that. Now, what he meant, this was an old timer, and coincidentally, he was an electrical engineer on a riverboat on the Mississippi. His name was Joe Feinberg. I remember him well, because it took me a long time to understand what he meant. And what he meant was, if you're not happy with yourself, then your surroundings aren't going to be happy. Your life isn't going to be happy. The people around you aren't going to be happy. And no one wants to be around people that aren't happy or who complain. You know, you stay away from people who complain or that aren't happy like they got leprosy, you know. I have to say that, you know, I think about a lot of things, you know, I talk about a lot of things, and enthusiasm. I'm going to do a show on enthusiasm because we should be enthused about life. You know, I talk all, I've got so much to say. That's why we're doing this podcast. I say we because I can't do it myself. So, out of 100 days, have one bad day. Now, that gives you 3.5 bad days a year, which isn't too bad, right? Now, for every 10 years, let me see, 10 times 3.5, that's 30. You got 32.5 days that you have bad out of 30 years. That ain't too bad. Or 10 years. No, 10 years. I got a little confused there. 10 years. This is the first podcast. Alec is going to edit it. You know?
Yeah.
But I have to say that I had a little jitteries. You know, I parked the car. I hope I had enough change for the meter. I hope I don't get a ticket. But I took the elevator to the 3rd floor. That's Alec's studio. And that was a little funny. I had a few butterflies in my stomach. And I thought of Bob Hope. Maybe you know Bob Hope, maybe you don't. But the point is that he said after 50 years of going on stage, he still got the butterflies. And being I brought up Bob Hope, I went to see Tony Bennett in Atlantic City, and he said that Bob Hope gave him his name because he was doing a show with Bob Hope, and Bob Hope asked him his name, and he said, "My name is Antonio Di Benedetto." So Bob Hope says, "I can't put that on the marquee." He said Tony Bennett. So Bob Hope gave Tony Bennett his name. So the reason I brought him up is because I had a little butterfly. And when I used to DJ back in the day with vinyl, in the beginning of the night, my hands used to shake. And then after a little while, maybe after a couple of vodka and tonics, I started to relax. But I would drink a Coke in between, just so, I wouldn't get carried away. Anyway, just a coincidence that Alec, by the way, I drove to L.A. to see Alec. And his friend was working as an agent for an agency. And Alec was in Memphis.
Yeah.
And his friend Paul was out of town. So I drove from New Jersey to L.A. I registered 2 screenplays. I got there on a Saturday. They told me it was open. They said no. I went back Monday, registered the screenplays, and Tuesday I escaped from L.A. I couldn't handle the traffic.
Hey, me too.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
You would think that they would work something out. When I was a kid and you do the trussels with they're called trussels, right? You put a train track on top of another train track.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they should do in L.A.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they need a subway. They need something.
Yeah, they should sprinkle the woods too. They should fire sprinkle the woods. Well, you build 40 homes, put sprinklers around.
Yeah.
You can't buy a home in the woods in L.A. or California.
Yeah.
You're liable to get cooked. I mean, barbecues are outside. That's a fact.
Yeah.
I mean, it would cost billions of dollars, but they got to do something to do it every so many square miles.
Yeah.
You turn a faucet on, and guess what? You shut the fire off somewhere.
Yeah.
I was in West L.A. I was with someone. We're driving down from, I think it was West L.A., yeah, because it was up top. It was on the hill. So we're driving down, and she mentioned, look up. And I looked up, and the only way I can explain it is that it's if I was in a bucket of water and I saw an orange sponge floating. That's how thick the smog was. So I said to myself, why not use dirigibles to filter the air? How could you be in a town where they tell you can't go out? How could you not go out? Now, this COVID thing, when they told us to keep our ass in the house, right, not to go out, that's one thing because of this virus. Now, but, mankind has to figure out a way or realize that life is more important than money and budgets. So, because I always think about what happened in New Orleans. They didn't have the money for the levees. Then after that devastation of Katrina, where did they get the money for the levees?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It's always like they find the money afterwards.
After the fact, yeah.
Yeah. A few people get killed, they put up a red light. Right?
Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. So that ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah. A stitch in time saves 9.
Exactly. So now what else can we talk about? Let's talk about comedy.
Okay.
Let's talk about fun. Okay? Now, I have intentions of doing some interviews with some people. Look, I have a friend. His name is Angel Salazar. He was in the movie Scarface. Okay? And he got paid $2,283 a week for 10 months. Coffee money, he said. He used to go, a guy sat at a desk with a slip of paper, and a guy gave him $600 cash because he was interviewed in one town and they filmed in another town. And then, I'm not going to get into what Al Pacino spent on a limousine bill or I think it snowed a lot when they made that movie. If you follow what I mean, I can't help myself. But I have this thing about the entertainment business, and I have to say a couple things. Like Robert Mitchum, for instance, probably one of the most laid actors that has ever lived. I mean, maybe I'm talking to young people or older people, but Robert Mitchum is somebody you could look up. But he was quoted as saying, where else can a bum like me make this kind of money? So, in other words. And you have to think about this. I watch movies, and they got a problem with endings. The endings aren't that good because they want to make another movie. Because they got all that film to reuse. My son Aldo gave me books on the filming of The Godfather. And they had 250 hours in a can for a 2-hour movie.
Really?
Well, sure. A professional photographer will take 200 pictures. You're going to get one good one. He's a professional.
Yeah.
But he took 200 pictures.
Yeah.
Right? If we do 1,000 podcasts, we'll get one that's good. Right? Sidney Pollack, I have the director. I have a lot of respect for him. Because he said in between bad movies, once in a while we make a good movie. You see? It's a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You know? And my son Aldo's a great writer. You know, he graduated from NYU. He told me he doesn't have the imagination to write, but he's a great writer. Okay? He'd probably make more money in the writer instead of the restaurant business, but, you know, that's the way the cards fell. I write. I'm not recognized. I've never published anything, you know, but I've been writing for 35, 40 years. And eventually I'm going to talk about that on the podcast. And I'll put my screenplays out so you can read them and you can judge for yourself. But I've had some good compliments. I've been given some good compliments. I fleshed my characters, which is a great compliment. I had 2 girls read both screenplays that I've completed, and they said they wanted to know why I'm not known, you know, which is a nice compliment. Mm-hmm. There's an expression where you can't sell your wares by yelling down a well, or you can't see the light if it's under a bushel. You know, do you toot your own horn in life? You're damn right, because Coca-Cola says they're the best. Pepsi says they're the best. Mm-hmm. But that's okay, because I want it to be entertaining. I'm not looking to educate anybody. I'm not looking to push my political views on anyone or tell you what's wrong with the world. You already know. I already know. I've got this thing about when someone comes into your life and they start telling you what's wrong with you. Well, gee, thanks. I mean, you know, I already know what's wrong with me. You know what I mean? You got to be around people that make you feel good about yourself. Life is so long. I happened to turn 43 in Las Vegas, and I remember that night so well because I was by myself. I was in a bar. I didn't know anyone. And if someone asked me how old I was, I'd say I was 43. But yesterday I was 23. I mean, I remember accountant friend of mine when I first went into business when I was very young. And I remember his wife, who was his secretary, said, I was 21. She said, Aldo, time is so precious. And I remember walking out of the office and saying to myself, what is she talking about? Time is so precious. How about the old timers who say to me, if only I knew then what I know now? And I'd say, well, let me suffer. Why don't you tell me? But you can't teach experience. Mm-hmm. You know, you cannot teach experience. That's something you just can't do. So it's something you have to go through. You know, that's why when eggs hatch, the bird's parents push them out of the nest. either you fly, or you know your history.
Yeah,
that's the way it is. There was a family in my hometown. We always called him Papa Stale. His last name was Stolatano. And I used to go to a place, swim club join family, this and that. And I remember climbing up to the high dive, and then I'd climb back down. I'd get dizzy. Meanwhile, all his kids would do half gainers, somersaults, and do all kinds of things. And he was known to like sink or swim. In other words, when the kids were young, he would throw them in the water. So that was interesting. I grew up in a place called Chambersburg, which is a small village, but kind of a village in New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey. And Trenton at one time was Trenton Makes, World Takes. Roebling had a plant there. Crescent wire is the wire that was used for the original Golden Gate Bridge. It was a very booming town. It was the pottery capital of the United States. On and on and on. In fact, there's a bridge from New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey to Morrisville, Pennsylvania that says Trenton Makes, World Takes. Trenton's not making anything that the world's taken today. It used to have textile companies, et cetera, et cetera. Trenton shrunk. At one time, it had probably the largest high school in the United States. I remember our graduating class was, I didn't graduate, by the way. I was playing hooks too much. There was a sweet shop across the street. I'd go there and have coffee or ice cream, and someone would say, "Oh, we're going over Motorman's house." I'd say, "Okay." I don't think I ever made it to school 5 days in a row in high school. It just wasn't my bag, I guess. I found it boring. That's terrible, but that's what I found. But anyway, Trenton shrunk. In fact, I owned a building that had 4 legitimate units and 2 other ones, and it was a one-family home. There's a lot of houses in Memphis like that they've turned into 4 apartments, 5 apartments. They're known as sometimes as white elephants. The average individual couldn't afford the heat or the electric bill in some of those homes. And what else can we talk about in Memphis? Oh, I looked into the word, first of all, I know this is going to sound nuts, but I thought it was Memphis with an N. I just realized it's with an M. Memphis.
You were calling it Memphis?
Memphis.
Oh.
Memphis. But I thought it was an N. I'm Italian, by the way. The Italian alphabet only has 22 letters. Okay. So anyway, the PH. How they get a F out of PH? I have no idea. Like Philadelphia should be spelled FIL. It's kind of interesting. You have to learn the language. I was born in Sardinia, Italy, so I had to learn the language. I came here. I don't want to say too much about myself.
Yeah, I think you're doing a good job introducing your life to strangers.
But anyway, now, I've never been on a cruise, but I was on a boat for 12 days from Naples, Italy to New York. And I have to tell you that when we came into New York Harbor, my mother woke us up at 5:30 in the morning. We were at the bow of the ship. And the first thing I saw was the Statue of Liberty. How impressive that is, I can't explain it to you, But my mother was upset because there was another family in front of us. And my brother Lorenzo had an accordion on him. He had to carry the accordion around so we wouldn't pay like a tariff tax. So we made like it was his, but it was actually from my cousin Robert in America, the accordion. But it's funny that I could picture him like 5:30 in the morning. He's got the accordion at the bow of the ship. But you know what amazed me most? Of course, the Statue of Liberty. But what amazed me most was cars. The lots of cars. I've never seen so many cars in my life. And we moved to Scranton, Pennsylvania, because my father had been here for all 5 years. They talk about immigration, they talk about laws, et cetera, et cetera. But my father came to America in 1953 and had to establish residency for 5 years before he could bring his family here. Now, and another thing too, when kids or whatever, they talk about the parents or dysfunctional families and this and that. I saw my father 3 times in 5 years. Now, did I love him any less? No. I knew I was coming to America since I was 3 years old. The only thing I was upset about is that I didn't get a horse. Okay, I wanted a horse. I was always a cowboy. Like, we don't have Halloween in Italy. We have what is called Carnevale, or New Orleans does it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody gets dressed. You put masks on. You know, it's not scary. I've never cared for Halloween too much. I'm not putting Halloween down. You know, it's not the point. But I was always a cowboy because it was easy. My mother would take paper, cut it up, and sew it to my pants, and I was a cowboy. You know, that's it. So I wanted a horse. I never got the horse. You know, but that's why I like westerns. My favorite movies. I think I like horses. I think they're the most beautiful animal on earth.
Yeah.
You know, and when I hear about the American Mustang, it upsets me.
The car or the horse?
The horses. Because of the fact everything's by horsepower. The word teamster is because somebody drove a team of horses.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Of course. That's how you get the word teamster. Now, everything went by horsepower. And I think that there's not enough respect for the Mustang. In fact, they tried an adoption, a free adoption, where you had to pay for the freight and their medical, but they would give you the horse. There's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of horses that the American government is spending. I don't know what exact figure is it 10,000 a day? And by the way, and they're also shot. You know, they say that being that horses are from the wild, they'll graze, but leave a little bit of grass, or cows won't. Cows will go down to the dirt. Okay? So there's something that, you know, I always thought about.
Yeah.
New Mexico, the land of enchantment, would be a perfect place to bring thousands of horses and create a park for kids. Put McDonald's. All you got to do is put McDonald's there. Create a park. A few rooms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to have a McDonald's. Let's see.
So how old were you when you came to the United States?
I was 8.
And did you speak any English?
No. I got here in June 16th or 14th. I have to look into that. And I turned 9 August 29th. I remember so well, you know, how I could remember all these things, I have no idea. But the principal's name was Valella. And what he did, I have an older sister and an older brother. I have another older brother, too, but he was already 17. He still speaks broken English. But anyway. So what he did, he put the 3 of us in kindergarten. And we started with A for apple, B for baseball, C for cat. Then after a while, half a day in kindergarten and half a day in our regular classes. At the time, I think it was 3rd grade or 4th grade for me, my brother, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But I can't even explain the welcome that we got. And the school was called Field School, and it was right at, it was like a block and a half away, you know. And I used to go down to my cousin Butchie's house every day and eat lettuce, tomato, and ham. A ham sandwich, lettuce, tomato, and mayonnaise. I mean, come on. And watch the Three Stooges. First time I saw TV. First time I ketchup, mustard, hot dog, sliced bread. You know, first time for a lot of things, you know. That's why I'm still enthused about life. Every time I get in a plane and the plane takes off, I say to myself, I can't believe they get this monster off the ground, especially when you're in a DC-10, which is huge, okay? So every time you plug something in and a light goes on, you're supposed to be enthused. When someone complains to me, I ask them if they have hot and cold running water where they live. They go, of course. I said, you're living large, you know? I had a friend in Sardinia, Italy, when I went to school when I was 18. His name was Mario Lino. I watched his mom sweep a packed dirt floor. 9 kids. No cable. No internet them days. One family, I remember watching TV in Italy. It only went on at 8 o'clock at the time. And they did I don't know if it was a documentary or what it was an interview. And this couple had 23 biological children. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
No cable, no TV, you know? And that's, 23 biological children.
Like
I've never, but it wasn't uncommon to have a lot of children. My mother were 10, and my father was 9. I have 52 first cousins. I lost a couple because they're older than me, but that's a lot of cousins. 52 first cousins. Today 2 kids, 3 kids, considered a big family. Well, you can't have too many kids. They want Nike. They want Reebok. They want Polo. The designers took over. I grew up in an era where labels were inside the clothes. I kid around with people all the time. Aéropostale means airmail in French. Okay. I was dating someone, and she put this dress on, and she was in front of the mirror, and actually it was a red dress. It was almost. She said, "How do I look?" I says, "I don't know." I says, "You look like a French whore." She says, "Oh, it's a moschino." Okay. I said, "That means little fly in Italian." Italian names sound good, but it's amazing what they really mean. Interesting that my name is Aldo, so when I first learned to speak English, I used to have a problem with ace or ass. And if someone says Aldo, I would turn around thinking they're calling my name. Aldo.
Oh, like although?
Right, yeah. Exactly. And to this day, it's actually hard to pronounce because it's Aldo. Because the A is A.
Aldo.
The I in Italian is E. The E in Italian is E. So I think now I basically got a good grasp on the English language in about 6 months. The younger you are, the easier it is. In fact, the hardest part about learning a language is sounding goofy. In fact, my grandchildren, especially the older one, I've spoke to her in Italian since she was 9 months old. Now, I know I didn't teach her the Italian language, but I know that if she ever chose to learn it, she won't have a hard time because she can pronounce Italian words. And I've never learned. Oh, by the way, I think French is the prettiest language on God's earth, especially when an attractive woman is speaking it. So, getting back to my trip from Italy to America when I was basically 9, almost 9. But I was all over that ship. Now, I'm a little confused about the movie with Marilyn Monroe, Clark Gable's last movie called, can't think of the name right now.
Me to look it up?
Yeah, I think I saw that one of my first American movies. I'm pretty sure if it was pre-58. Let's see.
Misfits?
Misfits. Was it pre-58?
That's 61.
No, then it wasn't that one. Okay. But I remember watching the first American movie. And by the way, Clark Gable, that movie killed him because he didn't use an extra when he was being dragged by a horse to impress Marilyn Monroe.
Really?
Man, she died young, but she was an interesting individual. Playboy, in fact, when he first published the first magazine, he was smart enough, Hefner, not to put a date on it. And her picture was on the cover. He paid $50 for it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And the reason he ended up with it is because a photographer friend of Marilyn Monroe gave her $5 to take a cab to an audition. And she let him take her picture. She let him take her picture. And that's how that picture ended up on the cover of Playboy. Now, it's an interesting thing about when someone wants to start something and someone says how crazy they are. Now, I see, my son's right, I ramble. Right now I'm on you, Hefner. Interesting individual. He worked for Esquire magazine. I read an interview, a 20-year anniversary, where Playboy interviewed Hugh Hefner. And he used to work for Esquire, and he asked for a $5 raise. They wouldn't give it to him. And he used to walk the streets in Chicago and look up at the top of the buildings and the penthouses and people partying. He wanted to be a part of that. And then when he became a part of that, he says, oh, I can have better parties than that. And that's why he stayed in his robe and pajamas all day. Interesting individual.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have any idols. I've never really envied anyone. But of all people, I have to give him a lot of credit for starting a magazine for $3,700. At the same time, Field and Stream started a magazine, and it cost $300,000. A guy wrote a copy for him, maybe a $200 copy, which he probably could have paid, couldn't afford to pay. But he gave him stock option. I think 20-some years later, the guy cashed it in for maybe $1 million, the stock. You know? So if someone in your life tells you you're doing something crazy, go ahead and do it. If that's what you feel like doing, then do it. You know? And if somebody gives you advice, try to say, if I need your advice, I'll ask for it. People throw advice around like it's, you know, when I was younger, they use the expression, they say. So I used to say, I never met they. Okay? Today it's Google. I mean, what doesn't Google know? They know my name. They know my social security number. They know my phone number. They know the people I talk to, you know. So Caroline Kennedy was doing a thing about we have no privacy anymore. Well, hey, I've spent so much time in casinos in Las Vegas, I was always on camera, so it doesn't bother me. Unless you're doing something wrong, it's nothing wrong with being on camera. I like it.
Yeah.
You know, I built a building behind my son's old house when he lived on Linden. The first thing I wanted to do was put a lot of lights up. The cockroaches, the rats, they don't like lights, you know. I remember reading an article in Trenton, New Jersey about the police department spending millions of dollars on new computers. I said to myself, why don't they light the city up? Spend money on lights. The rats don't like lights, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I'll bring Memphis up again. I'm in a poker room at the Orleans Casino in Las Vegas, okay? Of course, in conversation, I always say, here we are, it's a friendly game. We're trying to take each other's money. Poker's the only game you sit down, you're all friendly with everybody. I've had a woman with a diamond ring as big as my eyeball say to me, it was nice playing with you, where I took like $1,300 off of her. And she said, it was nice playing with you. It's a strange game, poker. So here I am, I'm at a poker table in casino in the Orleans Casino in Las Vegas. And I bring up Memphis for some reason, one reason, and someone mentioned about, oh, Memphis, you know, crimes and this and that. Although I wasn't born here, I've stayed here quite a bit. But it kind of like hurt my feelings that they said that. Because of the fact that you have to like separate what is going on and the homicides are committed and why are they committed. You know, it's like anything else. You know, there isn't a city where crime isn't committed. Camden, New Jersey was the murder capital of the world at one time. It was so bad that the state of New Jersey actually took over the city, and the city had to sue the state of New Jersey to get it back. So, you know. Oh, Atlantic City went gambling. I think almost every mayor went to jail. since the inception of gambling. They robbed hundreds of millions of dollars, you know. So, you know, I feel close to Memphis because, you know, when I tell people that Memphis is probably one of the friendliest cities in the United States, I really mean that. I'm not just saying that. I've met some of the most wonderful people I've ever met in my entire life are from Memphis, Tennessee. Okay? And then again, I mean, most of my world's here. I got family in New Jersey. I got family in Sardinia, Italy, Milano, and Christ, I got family all over the place. I think even in Sydney, Australia. But the point is that most of my world's here. Both my sons, my daughter-in-law, who I mention all the time, because without her I wouldn't have grandchildren. You know, 2 beautiful grandchildren. So, you know, and, hey, don't get me wrong, Memphis is wonderful, and it's listed as one of the least expensive cities in the country to live in. But that's if you don't go out. Hey, you know, let's get it straight. You know, so, and, you know, I miss New Jersey. I miss the beach. I love to surf fish, you know. I love to sit on the beach and with a pole and put it in the water and just sit there, drink a little espresso. I like to live near the water. Memphis is near the water, but then again, there's a mighty Mississippi. In fact, when I first came to Memphis on vacation, it sounds crazy, but I walked down to the Mississippi and dipped my hand in there and made the sign of the cross. Don't take it wrong, you know, I'm not a holy roly or anything like that, but I just wanted to touch the water. And, I mean, I think it's the 3rd largest river in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
The Amazon, the Nile, and the Mississippi.
Guess so, correct? Yeah. I'll look it up. What year
you can go to Google and everything.
What year was that you first came to Memphis?
Well, 2008. In fact, Aldo opened Bar Dog with the crash.
Oh,
during
really?
The crash.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
And I met you 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was
Do you
fresh
remember
out
what
of
I said
college.
to you one time when you were on the line?
I remember a lot of things you said to me.
No, but you were on the line, and they were short a server, and you said, I've never served before. I said, you want to be an actor, why don't you act like one? Remember I said that to you?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what's the difference? You walk over there and you ask them what they want, and you bring it to them.
Yeah.
And if you bring it wrong, no problem. You bring them something else. Give them a free dessert.
Yeah.
You know.
I know. And just
is it the 3rd largest?
It's the 4th largest.
4th.
So it
Which
goes
one?
Nile, Amazon, the Yangtze.
China?
Yeah, Yangtze.
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 China.
But I mean that it's only by like 10 miles difference.
Right.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one I could never understand about droughts.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Rockefeller created like a pipeline for kerosene. Why don't we just create pipelines for water?
Not enough profit, quote unquote.
Well, you know what? But it's got to be done.
It's the same thing like you said with the levees.
Yeah.
It's always after the fact.
I know that. Yeah. But New Orleans was disastrous.
Yeah.
Do you have turbo helicopters that could be anywhere in the United States in 3 hours?
Turbo helicopters?
Turbo helicopters. Well, are monsters. You know. I mean, it was all lackadaisical.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no money in it.
Yeah.
Let them die. There's
Yeah.
no money in it. There was I watched a thing in New Jersey about a state trooper who apparently, I don't know whether they donated their time or they were paid to go there. But when he came back from New Orleans, he said, I can't even discuss it with my family. The atrocities I've seen.
Wow.
How sad it was. You know, like a 3rd world country watching bodies float in the water. We're not supposed to happen in this country. You know, we're talking about we're the greatest country in the world. Are we being bullshitted? You know, you can only make a country great if you want to make it great.
Yeah.
You know, Trump says, let's make it great again. I mean, it's a great country. Look, Italy belongs to the Italians. France belongs to the French. America is the only country on earth that belongs to everybody. That's it.
Amen.
We are, John Lennon said, we're a melting pot. And by the way, being I brought up John Lennon, he's got to be regarded as one of the greatest philosophers that has ever lived. Because if you really listen to the song Imagine no religion, imagine no country. And he says I hope you join us. Now, and think about this. I'm going to say this on this podcast, although I'd like to protect it first. But I want you to think about these words I'm going to say next, okay? I am a human being from the planet Earth. Where are you from? I mean, doesn't that say it all? You know, when Trump got elected president, I happened to be in town. And I remember being at the Gold Strike. And I'm in my room. And sometimes, things happen. You spend time in your room, you're watching TV or whatever. And I remember, I don't know if I held on to the pieces of paper, but I wrote that being that I was in Italy when there was a presidential election in the United States, and you realize how powerful the president of the United States is, maybe he's the most important person in the world. And I remember writing that when the president of the United States, well, this time it was Trump. I mean, he's got to think about that all children on this planet are just as important as his own children. There's no dam there. You can't regard just your family. The expression "you are your brother's keeper" is a fact, because everything affects everybody. Like I got this thing about poverty and ignorance. Finally, the school system has finally buttoned up and said, teachers are responsible for the education. You can't. I had students in 11th grade that couldn't read. 11th grade, couldn't hardly read. They just kept passing them and passing them and passing them. Now, I'm not plugging Italy, but I went to school in Italy and found a whole different respect. Like I said before, I never made it to high school 5 days in a row. My cousin and my brother Carlo were going to a movie, and they asked me to go to the movie, and I said, no, I don't want to go. I said, I got to study. My mother almost passed out. I think she made me a sandwich and brought it to my room. She almost passed out, my mother. I said, I didn't go to movies because I want to study. I found it interesting. I found it more respectful. Okay, so now I come back to America. And I remember talking to my friend Puggy, Joe Radis, dear friend of mine. And I said, Puggy, I said, society can brainwash, Now, if a 19-year-old nitwit like myself, when I came back from Italy, realized that the public school system was failing, why did it take people in authority 30-some years to figure it out? Why keep sweeping the dirt under the rug until you trip on it? Why? In other words, that song where the sheriff has to go home because supper's ready. There's a song, Shawtalk Bridge, or, and I think the girl is about don't hire any local attorney or whatever. I mean, life is an interesting thing, I mean, we're all connected somehow, some way. I'm not going to be a preacher or anything like that, but, it's time that poverty, ignorance affects everybody. We can't be putting gates around buildings to protect ourselves. It just can't happen. I can go on and on. I'm going to do a lot of podcasts. I better save some stuff, right?
Yeah, this is great.
But that's okay.
Though.
I could talk about it. I wrote a piece on the homeless. I called it The Corrosion of Dignity. Now, I don't take credit for anything that I didn't originate. But I got that The Corrosion of Dignity was, I watched a special with Jacques Cousteau, and he was doing a documentary on Eskimos. And he uses the words, the corrosion of dignity, because they were strange people. I mean, if the first child was a girl, they put her out on the ice for the polar bears to eat. I mean, it sounds ludicrous, but that's what they did. But he did a special on that. And I was going to do something with a documentary or something about the homeless in Vegas. When I was in Vegas for a little over a year last year. And I was with my nephew and my brother. And when we drove through town, there was kind of like a shanty town built. Cardboard, people hanging clothes on the fence. And, you know, it's a plight. It's a corrosion. And it's almost like the Memphis Flyer did a thing about it's like stopping the rain, you know. I must say this about Memphis. I've never been in a town with this many panhandlers. Something's got to be done. It makes you feel bad. Makes you feel bad. And I do it many times. I slip $1, $2, or $3, you know. Sometimes a little bit of change. But I got this thing about I don't feel sorry for adults. Years ago, I remember reading something that 15,000 children died every day from starvation. Now it's down to 8,000. And but when it comes to adults, I'm very callous about their life. But I know that something happened in their life to do, or for them to either mentally, drugs, alcohol, for them to actually withdraw completely from society. But like I said before, I don't feel sorry for any adults. Even if it was my own family. You know, you got a life, live it. You know, how precious a breath is. You know, how precious a day is. You know, whatever your troubles are, hey, you know what? Someone has it worse. One of my favorite expressions, I remember the first time I ever used this expression. I was a dear friend of mine. I've known him for over half a century. Johnny Kakis. His name is really pronounced Kakash. You know, someone told me that. Slovak. He's a Slovak. His father was a Slovak. And I happened to do a job for someone, Krolak, and she told me that. But I remember he was my first, like, helper. You know, I bought a van. I went into business for myself. And I remember him on a Friday getting paid, and he wanted to go buy these sandals. And he wanted me to rush to bring him to this place to get the sandals. And he was so pissed that they had sold them. They ran out. So I said I cried for I had no shoes till I saw a man with no feet. So it's always someone richer, poorer, it's always something that if you live your life where your glass is always half full, like this glass is right here, well, I'm going to make it half full. So the bottom line is enjoy life. That's all. I mean, it's fun. Life is fun. It could be fun. If you think, and then another time too, like you got a problem. We all have problems. There was a gentleman by the name of Norman Vincent Peale, who I read a book when I was in my 20s. And he was dean of a college. And when one of his students used to call him and say, I got a problem, he would say, oh, good, come right over. And what he would tell his students is, if you don't have a problem, get on your knees and ask for one, because only then you know you're alive. And by the way, are we done?
You've got like 4 more minutes. You're
Oh,
at
I got
50.
4 minutes. Wait, I'll get my money's worth. Wait, that's funny. Wait.
No, I was saying until you hit an hour.
Oh, an hour, is that how it works?
If you want,
that's cool.
if you wanted to go an hour.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, by the way, whether I could talk about so many things. I'm going to bring up bookmakers in New Jersey in the next podcast. It's an interesting thing how politicians sit around the table and they decide that to put all the bookmakers in jail. And then they went into business. That's kind of interesting. What is right and what is wrong? In Las Vegas, I can go to a place and buy marijuana. I mean, the people in Vegas must be different. In California and Colorado, because it's illegal in Tennessee. But then again, being it's called the United States, each state is actually its own country. A lot of people don't realize that, That's why Europe is having problems. Because Europe is trying to do what the United States did. Like I happen to be a citizen of 28 countries. I think it's 28 plus America, 29. Now, it takes a long time. It takes a long, long time to put something together. But that's an interesting thing about the bookmakers. They spread a lot of money in the street. But when they made it illegal for the bookmakers, I mean, when they legalized the lottery, all the water went into one well. That's the bottom line. The mom and pop stores lost money. The small retailers in the neighborhood lost money, because there was no money in the street anymore. They took it all off the street. Anyway, by the way, bottom line is this, okay? Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again. And if I'm boring, well, that's your problem, all right? Thanks for listening.
That was great, Aldo. Look at that, right an hour and 1 minute.
Here. A little red.
Oh, I'll EQ that. That's just the way that
Yeah, that's fine. But I can't believe I said all that. An hour?